What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another Bros Talking Soccer podcast World Cup edition. Today is Monday, June 25th, and we are recapping day 12 of the World Cup action. My name is Dave Knittel. My brothers are off doing things. Christian's being a real adult with a real job. Matt is in school, and I believe taking his final, so good luck to him. So it's just going to be me recapping. We may be joined by Christian as we go along here, but for the most part, it's just going to be me. If you are watching on YouTube, feel free to interact with me. So I'm not a psychopath just talking to himself. It's always good to interact with other humans, and I'd appreciate that. And I'm sure I'm going to miss things. So again, I'd greatly appreciate it if you point those out and or highlight other things you want me to talk about. If you're listening to the podcast, thank you so much. We also record this thing live on YouTube every day that there are World Cup matches. We are live broadcasting about 15 minutes or so after the final match of the day. Not much else to do for my intro, so let's get to the topics. Before we talk about today's matches, I wanted to briefly touch on the Mo Salah issue. So for those who aren't following, the Egyptian FA sort of used Mohamed Salah for political purposes. And I don't understand the whole background here, but he was, I guess, steered to interact with the Chechnyan leader, who is someone who's somewhat controversial, and Mo Salah just didn't like that and is now threatening to retire from the Egyptian national team because he doesn't like being used as a political pawn. So, I mean, you never want to put a person in this situation. So I feel for Mohamed Salah. I mean, he plays for Liverpool. I got my Liverpool shirt on and supporting him. And so we'll be following that story as it goes. Obviously, it would be very sad to see him leave the Egyptian national team, in the prime of his career. They are out of the World Cup, but it would just be sad to see him leave in the prime of his career. And so hopefully, that issue dissipates and they stop exploiting him. Now let's get to the matches for today. So I'm one man, try to watch two matches at once. So I'm going to do my best here, but there's going to be things that I either missed or wasn't able to watch as, in depth as we normally do. So my tactics may be a bit off. So I'm just going to recap things. The first two matches in Group A were Saudi Arabia and Egypt, Uruguay and Russia. They were played at the same time. I was mainly following the Uruguay-Russia match because that had implications for the next round, whereas Saudi Arabia and Egypt were already eliminated. Let's go through Saudi Arabia, Egypt first, though. So finished 2-1. Again, I was only glancing at it, but it seemed to be that Saudi Arabia had the better of play throughout the match. I thought it was pretty sloppy, but even still, I thought Saudi Arabia had the better of play. And then Egypt got the goal in the 22nd minute. It was a terrible giveaway by the Saudi Arabia player at midfield. He tried to force a pass out wide that was just not on, and he played it right to an Egyptian player pretty easily. He should have just played it to his side, out to the player out wide, and instead he tried to force a ball. Egypt quickly countered, ball over the top. Great touch by Mohamed Salah. And then the keeper rushed out. Again, mistake by him. I don't think he needed to come out in that situation, and Salah just hit a delicate chip over him to make it 1-0. Again, a couple mistakes from Saudi Arabia on that particular play. Egypt then were sitting back and trying to play direct and on the counter throughout pretty much the majority of the match, but especially with the lead. 39th minute, Fatih had a penalty call. And so the cross came in from a Saudi Arabia player, and Fatih, the outside back for Egypt, who was the captain before this particular match. I should take a step back. So Essam Al-Hadari was the Egyptian goalkeeper for this match. He was the captain. He is 45 years old, oldest player ever at a World Cup. So quick shout out to him. But Fatih, who was the captain in the previous matches, right back, got called for a penalty on this particular play. And so it's a bit unfortunate because it hit his hand, and at the end of the day, I think it is a penalty, but he turned his back, he hit it with his trailing hand, and yes, he made himself bigger by it, but he didn't know much about the handball, and so, again, it's unfortunate for him, but again, I think it's the right call. This is why you see a lot of defenders just put their arms behind their back, and, they're not going to give up a penalty that way, but the resulting penalty kick was actually saved by Hadari. It was hit with power, but he got a hand on it, pushed it onto the bar, and absolutely fantastic save. And it was great to see the celebration of his teammates with him. That was really cool to see. So, even though they were eliminated, there's still incredible moments for fans and for people at this World Cup. We saw it kind of yesterday with Panama, and they scored their one goal when they were trailing 6-0, and they celebrated like they won the World Cup. So it's not always about winning. It's about having these moments for people that, they haven't had before. Egypt hasn't been in a World Cup since 1990, and Hadari's 45 years old. It's just a cool story. So really happy for him on that. Second penalty was called in the 47th minute. So that was first half stoppage time, but 2 minutes into that, the KSA player, I did not think this was a penalty. It went to VAR and he stuck with giving a penalty. The referee stuck with giving a penalty, and he also issued a yellow card. I thought that was exceptionally harsh. I thought both players, both the Saudi Arabian attacker and the Egyptian defender, were holding each other's shirts. If anything, I thought the Saudi Arabia player had more of a grasp on the Egyptian player's shirt and then dove with minimal contact. So I don't know why that happened. And for me, it took a long time for that to be resolved. And I don't know why that particular. I don't know why it was a penalty. I can't for the life of me figure out why that was a penalty. There was a little bit of contact, but not much. So I disagree with that call. Finally, after the huge delay with evaluating VAR, 51st minute, the penalty was converted by Saudi Arabia to make it 1-1 at the half. Salman Al Faraj, I'm trying to get the names right. Faraj, yeah, I think he was the guy who converted it. Second half, there really wasn't much to report. Yeah, Saudi Arabia got the winner in the 95th minute. That's literally my only notes that I have from the second half. Again, there wasn't much to report there. Saudi Arabia, again, they worked the ball really well to get it into the box. And so they had passing in the corner and then eventually got worked into the box. A cross or a pass got blocked out to the guy in the corner again. And then they had a really well-worked interchange of passing. And it was a nice pass by Otayev and just an absolutely great finish by Al Dawasari, who was pretty close to the end line. And so he didn't have much of an angle. He hit it first time, 95th minute. They get a win, their first win of this World Cup, and Egypt goes home winless yet again. They've never won a World Cup match. This is only their third World Cup, but it's unfortunate to see. I had Egypt winning this match 2-1 before it started, and we saw it go the other way. Now to the match that had implications for the next round, Uruguay versus Russia. It finished 3-0 to Uruguay. No Golovin for Russia, which was a bit of a surprise. He has been their main attacking threat along with Zuba, and so it was interesting to see him rested. I guess they were looking ahead to playing the next round. Russia was very focused on kind of playing direct. I thought that they, and the announcers were highlighting that they were bypassing their midfield and just playing very direct up to Zuba. I don't think that they wanted to get into a battle with the Uruguayan midfield, and they were sticking to that. 8th minute, the Uruguay counter led to the Suarez ball. So this is what led to their goal. So in the 8th minute, there was an Uruguay counter, and Suarez played a very poor pass across the face of the net to Cavani, who was on the far post. It got blocked out, and then they were very fortunate. Uruguay was very fortunate that the cross got blocked to an Uruguay player. He got there first and ultimately got a foul called. And then Suarez stepped up to hit a fantastic low shot into the corner on the resulting free kick, and that came in the 10th minute to make it 1-0. I didn't think Suarez has played very well in open play. He's got a couple of goals on set pieces, so he's hit, I think, 2 free kicks and gotten 1 on a corner, if I recall correctly. So again, I don't think he's playing particularly well in open play, but he is getting goals and Uruguay's getting results. They came out of the group 9 points in first place. So it's tough to fault him too much, but I want to see more from him going forward. On the goal, there was something weird going on, and the announcer, Tony Miola, was claiming that the Uruguay players were trying to push the Russian wall. I actually saw it differently. I saw that the Russian defender, I think it was Ignashevich, it could have been somebody else, was pushing the 2 Uruguayan players away so that his goalkeeper could have a good view of it. And so I didn't think the Uruguayan players did anything wrong. If anything, it was the Russian player who was initiating all of that contact and didn't amount to nothing because Akinfev, the Russian keeper, was beaten anyways. In the 15th minute, I noted that Uruguay was allowing the game to get pretty stretched and open. I would have thought that they would have been shutting the game down a bit more like we had seen in the past and in their first 2 matches. And again, they weren't doing that. And so I was just surprised at how open it was. And, things changed shortly thereafter, which we'll get to in a minute. 23rd minute, Uruguay got their second goal. It came off of a corner. The corner got cleared out to Laxalt, who hit in a shot into a bunch of bodies and was very fortunate to get a deflection. That ball deflected into the Russian net. Akinfev was not able to recover. And again, it was unfortunate luck for Russia, very fortunate for Uruguay. I thought Cavani played very well and has been playing very well this entire tournament. He's kind of been different than Suarez in the sense of Cavani has been involved. He's had good touches. He's looked good from open play, whereas Suarez has not. And then the second yellow came in the 36th minute, and that's where the game pretty much was decided. I mean, it was kind of decided before then. But Smolnikov, a few minutes earlier, he had picked up a yellow for a pretty poor foul, and then at this point, there's no debating that this was a second yellow. He got beat by Laxalt, and knowing that he's already on a yellow, he can't go diving in and making that really reckless tackle and exposing himself. And, now I know he was coming in and he was a sub, but still he picked up the second yellow, and that has implications for the knockout round. Russia already knew they were in the knockout round. They can't take a yellow card, they can't take a red card, especially in the first half, knowing that they have to play a man down for the rest of the game. That's just draining on all of the other players. And I know Smolnikov probably wasn't going to play next round anyways, but you're putting your teammates at a disadvantage because now they're more drained and don't have as much energy reserves as they move forward. So again, it was just poor play from him, just bad experience. And, I don't think he's been in a tournament like this and in that situation, and you could kind of see that. And then, so they needed to put Fernandez in. So they took off Chernyshев, who's had a fantastic tournament at wing, try to rest his legs, but then they put on their normal starting right back, Fernandez, and so he may not be as fresh next match when they go up against Portugal. Caceres, number 22 for Uruguay. Just wanted to highlight him because we highlighted him last time we talked about Uruguay. He got his shorts fixed. I don't know what the heck was going on last match and why his shorts were crazy and one was way hiked up or whatnot, but he got that issue fixed, so I was happy to see that. Uruguay dominated midfield throughout the rest of the match, and then again, not much to note from the second half. Russia, I thought, played pretty well down a man. I thought that they didn't just roll over and just play very defensively. They still tried to come out and play a little bit more, and may have been Uruguay, reserving some of their energy knowing that they were through. But again, I thought Russia played okay for being down to 10 men. And eventually Cavani got his goal, very deserved. I think it's his first goal of the tournament. That came in the 90th minute. And it was a tap in. So Godin won a header on a corner. It was good save and just a good poacher finish. So the match finished 3-0 to Uruguay. Moving on to the later matches, which were Group B. Real quick before I do that, actually, looking at my notes, I wanted to highlight. So Group A finished Uruguay with 9 points, Russia with 6 points, Saudi Arabia with 3 points, and Egypt with 0 points. So Uruguay moves on in first position and Russia moves on in second position. Now let's talk about Group B, which were the later matches. These were much more filled with drama. And so again, I did my best to try to watch both games. But again, I'm sure there's things that I missed and some of my points may not be spot on, but these are my notes based on trying to watch two games at once, which is not a good recipe to watch soccer games. So talking about Iran versus Portugal first, that finished 1-1. The keeper, for Iran, I have his name written down somewhere. What was it? It begins with a B. Biranvand. I thought he was very nervy in the first half. He had 2 or 3 moments within the first 13 minutes where he got into a yelling match with his defender. He had a couple dropped crosses and dropped shots that, he just was not exuding confidence. And that's not what you want to see from a goalkeeper at this level. And I'm sure it didn't help the defenders feel more comfortable, but it didn't amount to anything really that was his fault. And he kind of redeemed himself later on, which we'll talk about in a little bit. I thought Iran was giving away some fouls in dangerous positions that they didn't necessarily need to do. They were aggressive throughout the match, which was, understandable. It was desperate times. They knew that they needed to get a result and really a win to move on. And so you could understand that. But again, I think they were maybe a little bit too aggressive and gave away some fouls in dangerous positions. There was gaps, though, for Iran to exploit in the Portugal defense. I said it before the tournament started. I don't have a ton of faith in this Portuguese defense. And, I still don't, as it's older, it's a little bit slow, and there are spaces to exploit. And even Guerrero, who's younger, I don't think is defending particularly well. And Cedric didn't have a great game and got into, a little bit of, mental stuff, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And then, Pepe and Jose Font, again, are a little bit older. And again, I don't know how well that they are adept at dealing with maybe Suarez and Cavani next round. But Iran did well defensively throughout the first half and really throughout the game. They limited Portugal's chances to mainly shots from outside the box and crosses, and they were doing a really good job of slowing the Portuguese breaks down when Portugal was trying to counter. And so again, I thought they played particularly well until the goal came in the 40th minute, I believe, is when the goal came. It came late in the half. So I didn't write down the exact time, but it came late in the first half. And it was just kind of unfortunate for Iran because, again, it wasn't a huge chance, but it was Ricardo Quaresma who had some great play with Adrian Silva. They had a combination play where Quaresma, I think, played Silva, and then he laid it back off. It could have that wrong, but definitely Silva played it to Quaresma, who was breaking in on goal. And we've seen this from Quaresma before. Hits the shot with the outside of his boot, curls it perfectly over the keeper, upper 90, just an absolutely gorgeous goal and just a classic Ricardo Quaresma goal. So, props to him. He was coming in, I think, making his first start ever at 34 years old at the World Cup. He's played in World Cups before, but mainly as a substitute. So, he rewarded his coach for rewarding him with his faith. So it was tough for Iran to see that go in at the end of the half after they had played so well. So, but they were able to recover. They didn't, drop too much, and they didn't necessarily get down. They finished the half. It was 1-0, and then they went into halftime and came back out in the second half. In the 50th minute, that's when Portugal won a penalty. I know the Iran players were freaking out, but this was pretty much a clear-cut penalty. It went to VAR, and the referee made the right decision. Ronaldo was dribbling at the top of the box, and the Iran defender, number 6, who I had his name written down, no, it's not sorry. It begins with an S. Sorry, I can't find it right now. But he committed the foul on Ronaldo. Damn it. I thought I had it written down. Okay, I'm just going to have to move on. So he committed the foul. I mean, there's not much to really report from that. They made the right call. I know the Iran players were freaking out. The captain picked up a yellow card in that instance, and Iran was really getting into the ref's face. I mean, I know it's a huge deal, but they still had 40 minutes left in the game. They needed to keep their composure. And luckily, Biran Vand, the goalkeeper, bailed them out. I mean, he had a fantastic save on the Ronaldo penalty. And, props to him. He kept Iran in the game and, kept it at 1-0. So that was fantastic. And even after the penalty was saved, the Iran players for most of the rest of the match were just all up in the referee's face. And, it felt like they weren't focusing enough on the match. And, it didn't end up hurting them because they almost came back at the end. But again, I thought that they need to focus maybe more on the actual match and not worry as much about the referee. You can't control that. You can't control his decisions and whatnot. And so getting distracted and getting into arguments with the referee, I've never really understood. I get it. You're passionate and you're wrapped up. And I'm not going to sit here and say I've never yelled at a referee or anything like that. I definitely have. But it's also, he's not more inclined to give you a foul after you're screaming at him or something like that. I just don't necessarily get it, especially at the highest levels. Quaresma was diving a bunch, especially in the second half. Iran was playing physical, but he was also going down easily. But then as he wasn't getting those fouls called, you could see his emotions starting to boil up. And then the 64th minute, Quaresma committed a pretty bad foul. It was just a yellow, and I think that was the right call from the referee, but you could see he was going into that challenge with the intent of not winning the ball, but just making a physical challenge. And again, I don't think it was a red or anything like that, but he was definitely going in, not necessarily looking for the foul, and it was definitely a frustration foul. Again, I think a yellow was the right call there. Iran was getting into some good spots, but they just weren't hitting the target in the, up until around the 70th minute. And eventually they did find the target, which we'll talk about in a minute. But I thought that they just weren't getting their shots on target, which was somewhat disappointing because they were playing pretty well. 70th minute, I thought that this should have been a penalty on Portugal, so a penalty for Iran. Iran had the ball in the corner and they played a cross back. It was easily cut out by Portugal, but the Iran attacker was wrapped up and almost tackled from behind by Carvalho, the number 14, the Portuguese center midfielder. And again, he didn't need to bring the Iran attacker down, and it was just a clumsy play. Didn't amount to anything, and it ultimately, wasn't a penalty. But I think for me, that should have been a penalty call. In the 81st minute, that was the situation with Ronaldo. So Ronaldo was getting into it with a couple of Iran players. And on this particular play, the ball was dropped back to an Iran, either center back or outside back. It was some sort of defender. And a lot of times when defenders play the ball back, they'll block off a forward who's coming through. And, a lot of times you'll see forwards and, defenders sort of get into it as they're, being blocked off. It's technically obstruction and it should be called, but it's almost never called. And so, this is just a natural play. And on that, Ronaldo clearly pushed the Iran player, and there was some contact, and there was an elbow thrown to an extent. Now, Christian, I don't think is going to make it onto the podcast, but he was saying it's 100% absolutely a red. He didn't understand how that couldn't be a red on Ronaldo, and he isn't the biggest Ronaldo fan, and I am just somewhere in the middle. I'm not like incredibly pro Messi or incredibly pro Ronaldo. I think they're both fantastic. So from my perspective, I was fine with the yellow awarded there. This is a play that happens all the time. There was high emotions throughout this match. There was all kinds of physical contacts. And again, I don't think he really swung out enough to warrant a full-blown red. This is a play where he's trying to, for anyone who follows American football, he's trying to do almost like a swim move where he puts his arm under the guy and sort of pulls him back and tries to get around him. So yes, he's swinging his arms. It's probably a foul, and I'm okay with the yellow card. For me, it wasn't a red, but I know the announcers were saying it should have been a red. I know a lot of people on Twitter were saying it should have been a red, but again, for me, I was okay with the yellow card on that instance. Christian keeps bringing this up, so I'm going to address it here. When VAR is used, you can still issue a yellow card. VAR is supposed to be used for incidents that may have resulted in a red card. And so after you can go to VAR if you're looking at, should this have been a red? And as the referee looks and he says, no, this shouldn't have been a red, but it can be a yellow, he can issue a yellow card. It's not like he has to issue a red card or he has to issue nothing. So I wanted to address that point, and I know Christian's going to disagree whenever he hears this, or if he hears this, but that's where I stand on the issue, and I think that's what the rules clearly state. 90th minute, this is when the confusion broke out, and I don't understand why it took so long for this to happen. So there was a cross that came in, Iran wins the header, and it deflects off of the Iranian player's head onto Cedric's outstretched arm. Anyone who watched the Denmark match saw that a similar play happened, and Yusuf Poulsen was called for a penalty. So I thought that this should have been a penalty. Yes, it's harsh, but if that's how they're going to call it, at least call it consistently. And that's what we saw. So Cedric had his outstretched arm, the ball struck it, and the referee eventually called the penalty, but he was listening to VAR for, I don't know, a good minute or two. And then on top of that, he then went to look at VAR himself and spent a minute or two. So this was probably the longest VAR we've had at the World Cup. And for me, I can't understand why it took so long. I don't know why the VAR, I don't know why the center official took so long to go over to the VAR. He should have gone over much quicker. And again, I thought this was the right call, and it was a fantastic penalty that ultimately ended up being taken by Ansarifard. I'm sorry. I'm trying to get the names in here. Ansarifard, who is one of the best players for Iran. He is the number 10, and he's been fantastic for them. He didn't start the match, but he came on and made an impact. And then 94th minute, the winger, Taremi, got into a position. Iran at that point was playing desperation, long balls over the top, and they got lucky. A ball fell to Taremi, and he had an opportunity. Yes, the goalkeeper was barreling down. A defender was closing in, but he has to hit the net there. He put it wide, and it kind of looked like a goal to half the stadium. But for me, in that instance, he has to at least hit the target to make the keeper make a save. And so for him missing, that was it for Iran, and the match finished 1-1. Portugal advanced out of the group, but it was really tough to see him there because that could have been incredible for Iran. And then the match ended. Cedric freaks out, picks up the silly yellow card by yelling at the ref for, again, calling the penalty. I get that he was frustrated. I get that he has emotions. But in that moment where a World Cup, your yellow cards accumulate and it doesn't get reset till after the quarterfinals. And so if he picks up a yellow card next match and they end up beating Uruguay, he's going to be suspended for the next match. And so again, he has to be smarter there. I get that his emotions are getting, are high and they're riled up, but again, he needs to be smarter in that situation. And picking up a silly yellow card after the result has already been secured is just dumb for me. Last match of the day was Spain versus Morocco. Again, it happened at the same time as Portugal, Iran. That finished 2-2 as well. Or that finished as a draw. It finished 2-2. This was the game I was only partially watching. I was more focused on Iran versus Portugal, but it seemed to be exceptionally physical and contentious throughout. I don't know if there is something more there. I know Morocco is incredibly close to the country of Spain. The two countries are very close together. I don't know if there's any rivalry from that boils into this, but again, it just looked like Morocco came to sort of not fight, but they came to be physical, and Spain was giving it back. And so, I didn't expect them to roll over or anything like that, even though they're eliminated, because these are professionals and I'm sure they're going to work incredibly hard. But again, it was interesting to see just how physical and how many fouls that there were throughout that match. Piqué had a really terrible tackle in the 7th minute. It didn't go punished. I'm not even sure if it was a foul. I just happened to glance at it, but it was arguably a red. He came in 2-footed, straight leg, studs up. If he would have made contact with the player, it was Boutaib. He made a little bit of contact and Boutaib went down, but then if he would have made more contact, like that's a leg breaking tackle. And again, for him, Spain needs him in the match. And so for him to take that risk, and again, on just such a silly, unnecessary play, he was going to win the ball. There's no reason to come through and tackle like that. So again, he was fortunate not to see red. Then Morocco scored in the 14th minute. So a little bit later, Spain just had a miscommunication. You don't see this very often from Andres Iniesta and Sergio Ramos, but Iniesta was dribbling near the back line. As he was running by Sergio Ramos, Iniesta took a heavy touch, and I don't know if it was necessarily a pass or if that was just a heavy touch, and Ramos thought he was going to continue dribbling, and Iniesta thought Ramos was going to pick up the ball, and so they both sort of stopped, and Boutaib, was on it. He had his wits about him. He quickly jumped on the ball, was away on a breakaway, and, played it between De Gea's legs on the breakaway and ultimately scored. If anybody is questioning David De Gea on that, that's dumb. I mean, he did his best. It's a breakaway. I mean, you can only take up so much space. So I don't fault him in any way. This goal falls on Ramos and Iniesta for the most part. Boutaib, I had highlighted in the past. I thought he played pretty well against Spain in their last match. That was in their last match, but he just wasn't good at finishing. And this match, he got a goal. So props to him. I wanted to highlight him there. Spain then came back and equalized in the 19th minute, through Isco. It was just classic tiki-taka sort of Spanish goal. There was all kinds of interchanging in play. I think Iniesta was the one mainly involved. Again, I was mainly watching the Iran-Portugal match, but this play just looked like it was Iniesta written all over it. Everybody was passing. Diego Costa got involved, and then Iniesta drove to the end line and drew the defenders and goalkeeper in, laid it back off to Isco, who composed, took his time, and just blasted it into the roof of the net. Again, it just looked like a classic Spain goal. There were some other moments throughout the match that I noticed that the Spanish center backs in particular just had some miscommunications on some long balls. There was one in the 20th minute. There was a long ball, and Ramos looked like he stopped running, and Piqué wasn't coming over, and Morocco almost got a chance there. And so again, throughout the match, Spain just looked a little bit off, which was interesting for me to see against a team that had already been eliminated. Morocco players continually getting into it with ref. Yeah, I thought the Morocco players, similar to the Iran players in the other match, were just constantly getting into it with the referee. And again, you're not going to win anything by doing that. And so I don't know why they were getting so up in arms about that. And, you saw some instances where, you could have seen more cards for dissent. And I get that the emotions are high. They're already eliminated. And so I don't know if that played a role in all of that. In the 47th minute, there was a play where I think it was Caraval or it was the other outside back. Why am I blanking on his name? Alaba, who chipped it back to Piqué. And for whatever reason, he handled it right on at the top of the box. And the referee blew the play off, and it never went to VAR. But I thought that was a clear handball. He, again, just very clearly stuck out his arm, or at least didn't try to get it out of the way and controlled the ball. And I think Morocco can feel a bit aggrieved that wasn't called as well. So for me, that was interesting to see. 62nd minute, Isco should have had a second goal. This was the one where a cross came in. He got his head on it, and then the Saiz, that's his name, Saiz, number 6, cleared it off of the line as he was running back. And so that was just a fantastic clearance. It looked like it was going in to make it 2-1. So again, great effort from him by a team that had already been eliminated. So again, you love to see that. So players still playing with pride. This is a World Cup, and so him making plays like that was just fantastic to see. And then again, because I wasn't watching this match as closely, the feed showed a replay of Amrabat hitting a fantastic shot that went in between PK and Ramos and off the crossbar. I have no idea when that shot came in or whatnot, but again, it was fantastic. It was a fantastic shot from Morocco, and so close for them to taking the lead. Morocco then finally scored to take the lead in the 82nd minute. Just an absolutely thunderbolt of a header by Nesri. Again, apologies on these pronunciations. I'm trying to say everybody's name, but I'm not doing a great job at the pronunciations. I know I've been hammering home, you got to have men on the post. Doesn't matter on this one. Spain didn't have men on the post, but wouldn't have mattered. This was upper 90, just bullet header. Nobody's saving that. So again, fantastic from Morocco. And lastly, Spain scored. It ended 2-2. I think it was in the 91st minute. Again, this one took a long time on VAR as well, but it was the right call. I mean, Aspas was onside. The cross was on the ground. He had a very nice flick behind him. And with VAR and the technology that FIFA has invested in to get the offside calls correct, I mean, we're seeing that the line is being used and there's official technology to incorporate that. So I think they said I want to say it's 100% accurate, but I don't know if anything can be 100%, but it's damn near 100% accurate. And so I get that the Morocco players were upset, but I don't know why you're screaming at the referee when this is just like a cold hard fact. It went to VAR, it went to review. It's been looked at in detail. And so there's not much he's not going to change his mind. I don't know what they're yelling about. That's what I'm trying to say. I don't know what they're yelling about at that point. So with those results, that late Iran goal knocked Portugal back down to second in the group. So Spain finished in first place with 5 points based on tiebreakers. Portugal finished in second place also with 5 points, but again, because of tiebreakers, they finished in second. Iran came third and Morocco came fourth. Sad face, I had Morocco doing better out of this group, and I would have liked to see how they played against Spain. I mean, they basically played that way in their other matches. They just didn't finish. So if they could have finished some chances in the other matches, what could have been, but didn't end up working out that way. Now, before we get to tomorrow's matches, I want to quickly plug our partner, StadiumScene.tv. So if you're a fan of any sport, really, specifically in America, you want to go to StadiumScene.com before you go to a match, because they have reviews, they have recommendations of where to park, where to eat before and after matches, bars to check out, and all of that. So you definitely want to go check them out. In addition to those recommendations, they partner with content creators like us at Bros Talking Soccer, and there's a bunch of other partners on there as well across all different sports. So they have a bunch of other soccer on there as well. But if you're interested in hockey or American football or something else, they have content for everybody. I think they just got a NASCAR partner. So you want to go to StadiumScene.tv, check out our content and everyone else's. Now let's talk about tomorrow's matches. We got Australia versus Peru and Denmark versus France as the Group C early matches. And then the later Group D matches are Nigeria, Argentina, and Iceland, Croatia. Australia versus Peru. I meant to look this up before we recorded, but I believe Peru is already eliminated, but Australia still has a very far outside chance. I still like Peru in this match. I think Peru has played well throughout this tournament and just isn't scoring goals, similar to Morocco before today. So I like Peru to actually win this match. I think it's going to be tight, but again, I expect them. I'm just bringing up the group as I'm talking here. So France is on 6 points, Denmark's on 4, Australia's on 1, and Peru is on 0. I expect Peru to prevail in this match. It's going to be fun because Australia showed against France that they can still play and they can maintain a good defensive shape, and they can hit you on the counter, and against Denmark, I thought that they played even better. So they might continue, but again, I slightly favor Peru in this matchup. I expect them to get a result and sort of go out on a high note. So maybe like a 2-1 or maybe like even a 3-1 or so for Peru. That's what I'm going with. Denmark versus France. I like this French team. I know a lot of people are saying they're not playing well. I particularly disagree. I think that they are playing well so far, and it's been a product of, their opponents and why the results haven't been, emphatic. but I really like the way that they're playing. I think that they figured out a formation. Having Giroud up top is the right call. He needs to stick with that. Deschamps needs to stick with Giroud up top. I expect to see that throughout the rest of this tournament. It's just a more effective formation, and I expect them to get through this match 2-0, maybe 3-1 or something like that. I expect France to win by multiple goals, and I expect Denmark to still get out of the group even with the loss. So again, I expect final France come out in first and Denmark to come out in second, and then Australia and Peru flipped for the way the standings are now. So Peru in third and Australia in fourth. That's how I expect the final results to go. And then our final Group D matches tomorrow, Nigeria versus Argentina and Iceland versus Croatia. So Nigeria versus Argentina is going to be very interesting. You're hearing reports about like a revolt in the Argentina camp. They're saying, Sampaoli is still in charge, but they're not letting him make any decisions, and the players are picking the lineup and the tactics and all of this. I don't know if this is just, crazy media speculation because of the turmoil in the Russia camp, or if any of this is actually true. Even with everything going on, I think Argentina finds a way to get a win in this match and come out of the group in second. I haven't loved the way Nigeria has looked. I certainly haven't loved the way Argentina has looked, but I think that they will have learned from their mistake in their last match against Croatia, not try to play that formation, the 3-4-3 or whatever they were trying to do in that match. I think they've learned. I think that either a 4-3-3 or a 3-5-2 or, something that gives Messi a little bit more freedom, they will allow that to happen, and he will shine and, carry his team to the second round where I expect them to lose in the round of 16. But again, I expect Argentina to get a result in this match, maybe 2-1. Yeah, maybe 2-1 or something like that. Again, I think it's going to be close, but I favor Argentina to just get a result here. Final match, Iceland versus Croatia. I love the way Croatia has looked. Christian highlighted it in our pre-match World Cup podcast edition, and he's been hyping them throughout. I really like them as well, and I had them coming through this group in first place too, so they're very good. I mean, at the end of the day, they're very good. Iceland is defensively structured, and they are talented to an extent. They can't match up just straight talent for talent with the Croatians, but they will be disciplined, and Croatia with Rakitic and Modric are just so good in the center of the park that I expect them to find ways to break down the Icelandic defense and expect them to get a result. I expect Iceland to fight hard, but again, maybe there's a 2-0. I feel like all the results I'm saying are 2-0, but again, that's what I would expect from this match. Croatia may rest some players, but again, I expect them to kind of keep that momentum moving forward and expect them to get a win. And hopefully Iceland gets a goal and they can celebrate and we can all hear the Viking clap, which I'm sure their fans are going to be awesome in supporting them throughout, which may not be the case for the Argentina fans. So that's something to keep an eye on as well. With that brings us to the end of the podcast. I want to give a couple quick plugs. So in addition to Bros Talking Soccer, I have a YouTube channel called The Soccer Tavern. We have it linked in the video description, or if you're listening to the podcast, it'll be in the podcast show notes. I have videos about the history, culture, and philosophy of the beautiful game on there. And so in addition to, I have World Cup videos. So I have national team history videos of all 32 teams at the World Cup. It's, anywhere from 5 to 10 minute videos giving you the background on why their nicknames are what they are, what's the story behind their national team crest, who are some of their famous players in history, and all of that. So please go check them out. I worked really hard at all the research of them and spent a lot of time editing and all of that. So that'd be really awesome. And then we have tons of other videos on there as well. I have explanations of why a term is called a nutmeg, and why soccer is called soccer. And then we have Premier League history videos and all kinds of stuff. So if you're a soccer fan, please go check them out. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Speaking of loving to hear your thoughts, please let me know what you think of the podcast and the way we've been doing it. I know it's just me today. Usually we have guests and my brother's on, but just didn't work out today. If you like the way, I know we get pretty detailed on the tactical review of the matches. If you enjoy that, please let us know. Or if you want us to do something different in, talking more maybe topical or anything, we would love to hear from you. And so, feel free to tweet at us at BT Soccer Pod. I'm on there. And so is Christian, live tweeting most of the matches and all of that. Or if you want to email us, bros.talking.soccer@gmail.com, that works well as well. And if you want to check out more information about us and past episodes and other details, please visit our website, brostalkingsoccerpodcast.com. Thanks so much for listening, and I will be back with you tomorrow. Hopefully, Christian will be here. I don't think we'll have Matt, and maybe we'll get a guest. But thank you so much for tuning in, and I will talk to you all tomorrow. See you, everybody.